Good to go. Okay. I'd like to take the time to welcome everyone to the July 2022 Lancaster County Planning Commission. And before we get going, first I'd like to welcome everybody that's in attendance, but before we get going, I'd like to welcome Mr. Farrell, our new Land Use Director. And in that, I'd like to say you're coming in behind two big pairs of shoes, Mr. Gill and Mr. Barnes, and I say that without hesitation because they made us look halfway like we knew what we're doing up here. So anyway,
I agree, sir.
welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new position. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank
A lot
you,
of
sir.
comprehensive plans to go through. Okay, that said, did all the commission members receive their packets in time to review them for the May 2022 meeting?
Yes.
Everything, any changes needed, or everything look okay? I'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for the May 19th, 2022 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving right along. We've got a public hearing application for changing of zoning district classifications, Stay the Course LLC, care of Nathaniel M. Everett. And this is kind of like deja vu all over again. It's kind of interesting for y'all because y'all get to submit the same application to two totally different land use directors. And I don't know if I ever remember that ever happened. So we'll go back through this again, and just to bring everybody up to speed, it was recommended to Mr. Everett that he come back with a plan of development prior to us forwarding one way or the other to the Board of Supervisors, recommendation or non-recommendation. So that said, Mr. Everett, would you like to come up and sort of tell us what's changed, if anything, and kind of just summarize what you're planning on doing again, please, just for the record?
My name's Nathan Everett, and like you said, we've kind of been here before. I believe all the information's in the packet. Everything should be pretty self-explanatory there.
Nothing changes from what we had and from what was stated in the last meeting, is that correct? Other than I know now you own both parcels.
Yes, sir. Everything's in the packet, and the property is in our name in the LLC at this point. Last time it was kind of up in the air, so people thought things were contingent upon, which was not the case, but everything's very straightforward. It's right in the packet.
And I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase because I was remembering everything we talked about. It was a road issue. Has anything been resolved or anything changed on that? Road, when I say road issue, access width, we were uncertain if we could expand the road, or has anything changed on that?
So talking with emergency vehicle, the fire department, stuff like that, they just said all they need is 8 foot by 14 foot tall to access all the properties, and there's no other.
And that road is 8 feet wide?
Yes,
It
yes.
is? Okay.
I don't think there's anybody else that needs any more room than a fire truck. So
Yeah, okay. I just didn't know if anything changed. I just remember that was what the neighbors were talking about. Mr. Lee, you questioned what the actual
Yeah,
easement width was.
yeah, I think the easement, and things like that, because you got an easement going in there. And I thought, and I'm trying to remember now what was said, was something about part of it being wet, something like that, it was driving in. Wasn't it, none of it encroaching on anybody's yard, anything like that, was it?
as far as I remember, there's some existing issues with as far as two-way traffic that have been going on before I even bought the property. But that would be for other people to disclose. I mean, everything in the packet states that if we're going to do business at the end of the road, that we intend to upkeep and maintain as much of it as need be.
If they decide they want to make it a two-way road, that's a whole nother issue. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you need a bridge. You guys have anything for Mr. Everett before we open up the public hearing?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. At this time, I'll take this portion of the meeting to open up our public hearing portion. If you'd like to come up and say something either for or against or just for informational purposes, I request you come up to the microphone, state your name and district number, please. Mr. Smith, come on up.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here again.
minutes.
The summary of the things that I said in the Planning Commission are correct, correctly recorded. Basically, what I was doing at that session was asking a lot of open-ended questions. By the way, that's not an easement, that's a right-of-way. That road is owned by me and them and Paul Summers. And there will be no constructions on that road except what we agreed to. Now, I did have a discussion with Mr. Everett about the traffic flow up and down that road, because my property is damaged by the current traffic that uses that road. When two cars meet each other, one pulls over into my grassy area, and I'm left with deep ruts that not even my lawn tractor can handle. And that was the initial point of my concern, is that if I'm having that trouble now with neighbors that I like, and I think I like Nathan, how bad is it going to be if the traffic is quadrupled or quintupled? And so I'm trying to get my arms around the scope of the endeavor. Now, I don't know what comes first, honestly, whether or not you deal with zoning issues and then building permits, or they're all part and parcel of the same problem. Because even if you give him an M1, that hasn't solved his building permit problem. There's a building down there that I don't know to what use it will go for his business, but I suffer to think that it's inadequate for his present needs. Trying to understand what he's doing now, I went over to Meredith and I talked to Meredith about the business that Mr. Everett conducted over there for a number of years. And there are some huge concerns. And I own 5.5 acres on Windmill Point Road that has waterfront on this cove. One of the first problems I said is, as a fishery, does it use fresh water, cleanses, catches, or anything else? And Meredith said, yeah, uses about 1,000, 2,000 gallons a day. So, well, what does he do with that water when he's done with it? He doesn't dump it in the cove, does he? No. Mr. Meredith has septic tanks that he recaptures all that water. There are no septic tanks at the end of Harper's Cove. And I don't know how you're going to put any in. I know when I put in a 4x4 vertical post in my yard, go down 2 feet, I don't need a ruler. I'm on the water table at 2 feet. I said, well, what about the refrigeration units down there over at Meredith's? He says, they're commercial refrigeration units, 3-phase electric. Right now, Dominion Electric is running an underground project down Harper Cove. They're going to tunnel under Harper Cove Road to run the service out there. And that's because those poles are sitting out in the water, and if one ever came down with a tree or anything, they'd have a hard time replacing those poles. So they're going underground. So I asked Dominion, I asked Fisher, their contractor, is there any discussion about putting 3-phase electric through that tunnel? He said no, and they can't be. They can't do it. There may be some other way to get other 3-phase electric down the end of that road, but it's not included in the current underground tunneling project. As I was talking to Paul Summers one day about 3 weeks ago, I looked out across the cove and I saw a 60-foot truck. I said, what's that truck? He said, that's one of the big trucks that they use for his business. I said, isn't any 60-foot truck going to be going up and down this gravel road that is surrounded by water on both sides, crossing over 3 different culverts? They'll crush the road, they'll crush the tunneling. So I really don't know what he wants to do out there, but I would have thought that part of the submission would have included sketch plans or site plans to show exactly what he wants to do at the end of the road and not just to the road. For example, one of the things he wants to do is put in a dock. Well, he can rehabilitate a dock that's there, but I'm not sure that he's allowed to improve upon the dock. He can only rehabilitate the dock. Well, there's an oyster bed there. Virginia Marine Resources is going to require sign-off before any other improvements are made to that waterfront. So I'm here simply tonight to say I have the same or greater concerns than I had before. I'd be glad to work with Mr. Everett. We did talk about a part of the road that involves my part of the right-of-way for a pullover, so that one car could pull over as another was passing it. And I think we've worked something out theoretically in the long run for that eventuality. But I'd have to say at this point, I don't have enough questions, never mind enough answers, to say that as a property owner in close proximity, I'm not an adjacent property owner, so I don't get notices of these hearings, but as a property owner in close proximity to this project, I'm not in favor of it, but I'm not against it. I don't know why he needs an M1 to do what he has done before as an R1 over at Meredith's, or why all the businesses who are conducting their business on Harper Cove as R1s, why they find that inadequate, but he doesn't. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
My name's Frank Nelson. I'm the adjacent property owner. We've been there for almost 7 years. And when we first got the place, it was pretty run down. And we came here to the county to find out what we could and couldn't do. Well, they said you can fix up everything that's there without any permits. You know, make improvements. As long as you don't change anything, keep it the way it was. So in the 6 years we've been there, we rebuilt the railway, had several docks rebuilt as we got the money to do things and make improvements. We have a conditional use permit there. Everybody there has conditional use. I just can't seem to wrap my mind around why somebody needs an industrial permit. The place, as Mr. Smith was saying, there's a road coming in there, and there's a narrow, more or less a bridge of gravel, dirt, and oyster shells that was put there by the people that owned our property originally. There's no way that that's going to handle any of the traffic of a tractor trailers. You know, I have the same license that he has. I've worked on the water for 40 years, third generation fisherman. The license that I have is the same one he has, except he has a buyer's license. We could get a buyer's license if we wanted to. Under the conditional use, we could sell fish just like he does, crabs, do the same things without an industrial permit. I can't understand why the industrial permit. Maybe you can tell me why he needs an industrial permit there. There's only one other place with an industrial permit, and it's not in a cove. It's on the main creek. Now, maybe his plan is to put the seafood house on the main creek, which I probably wouldn't have a problem with, but you still have a problem with the road. You still have a floodplain there where he's at with wetlands on both sides. You got eagle's nest there within 100 yards of the place. You got wildlife running there. I mean, it's the last vestige in Harper's Cove that isn't in use, you know, for fishing, selling fish. But it's been residential forever. Somewhere along the line, I've been told that what he's doing is falling under the working waterfront. There's nothing there that is under the working waterfront. It doesn't meet any of the criteria of that. It's always been residential. The working waterfront, as far as my knowledge is concerned, was for revisiting or revising or rebuilding rundown places. There has been plenty of abandoned seafood houses and stuff that people are buying all over the place. And then they're bringing them back up to par and doing business as usual there again. I just can't understand why Mr. Everett wouldn't want to go towards something like that instead of an industrial permit in a floodplain with wetlands on both sides. And it just, maybe some of you can explain that to me, and I haven't seen the site plan. Everybody's talking about a plan that he's got. I've never seen it. Other people have seen it. Me and my wife have not seen it. So I don't have any problems with this man. He's a hard worker. And I've sold seafood to him in the past. I'm not right now. I'm working oystering with the Kellums. But I just have a problem wrapping my mind around this being part of the Working Waterfront Program. I've been involved in the Working Waterfront Program before, doing oyster reefs, steamer rock out in the Rappahannock, and planting shells and different things. But I just don't, I mean, maybe it's not part of the Working Waterfront Plan, but when I spoke to him about it, he mentioned that to me. And he also mentioned to me that the county was pushing him towards this permit, industrial. If he would have known that everybody was going to go along with the conditional one, he would have just went for that. But he said the county was pushing him towards that. So I don't know if there's any truth to that. And as far as y'all are concerned, that could just be hearsay that I'm saying, but he did tell me that. That's pretty much all I got to say until I can see what the plan is. But in industrial, like I said, there's only one industrial place there now, and that is David George's place. And it is huge, and it's high up on dry ground, way up where a storm can't bother it. It's all concreted over. You could drive down on the dock. I've sold him oyster seed before, and we drove right down on the dock and put it on his boats and stuff. I mean, it's huge, and I wouldn't want to see anything like that over there. We have bought the place. We got a beautiful view there, and that was one of the things that the county told us, as long as we don't change anything or obstruct the view. I said, well, what is the view? The biggest place where you can see out. You can see all the way out to Little Bay and out of Anti-Poison Creek and out, straight out. So basically, like I said, I don't have any problem with this man. I just have a problem wrapping my mind around an industrial site there when I've looked up what industrial includes. So I'd just like to see that plan, and that's all I really have to say. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson?
Anyone else?
Yeah. I was gonna see, I just wanted to go back, is that, I mean,
I can address, Bill, if you don't mind.
No.
I want to take Mr.
Check
Smith's,
First, you want to make sure everybody that's on first, could you?
well, I mean,
we're still open for public hearing. I hadn't shut it down.
do you want me to wait till after the public hearing's over?
Well, I'd kinda like to address it right now, I'd just like to,
Okay.
if you don't, if it's okay.
Okay.
Dick?
I'm going to take up what Mr. Smith said about zoning and where it comes, step one, step two in a few minutes, but I want to address what Mr. Nelson just said about they operate under R1. That's because what you all have is an authorized non-conforming use that continues to exist. If you all wanted to expand in any way that authorized non-conforming use, you would have to have a special exception before the Board of Supervisors to expand what you do now. That's how you've been able to continue what you're doing. The R1 district does allow basic seafood processing with a special exception. So Mr. Everett could have gone down that road, just a special exception for basic seafood processing. But I think the interpretation of prior staff, they're not here anymore, but I believe the interpretation was that what Mr. Everett is doing with his buying and selling operation of seafood was a little bit larger than what basic seafood processing entails. Historically, the basic seafood processing special exception in the R1 district has been for folks running aquaculture businesses from their home. That, over the past 5 years or so, that has what that basic seafood processing use has entailed. The industrial zoning that Mr. Everett is seeking, I think, covers what would be more than basic seafood processing. Now, it doesn't allow all of the uses in the M1 district that you mentioned. He has taken the M1 district and stricken many uses that he does not want, and he signed a proffer statement to that effect. So he's eliminating many uses by this signed proffer statement, which becomes part of the file. You mentioned that you had not seen his plan of development. It's online. Our meeting information is online. It's been online since last Friday. Meeting information is posted usually the Friday before a meeting. We've got a copy here as well. There is a difference between a plan of development and a site plan. This is a plan of development. This is step one, going back to what Mr. Smith said. Does the site plan come with the zoning? Step one is the zoning. And as part of seeking the M1 zoning, he's required to have a plan of development. This is a plan of development. A site plan comes later, after your zoning is in place. Also coming later with that site plan would be the VMRC approvals for building additions to the docks or building additional docks. Whatever else he has envisioned on this plan of development. So those things come later. He's got to have the zoning in place before he goes down that road of a site plan. So hopefully that maybe brings some context here. I hope it does. I can try to answer any other questions you may have regarding this.
I want to address the road.
I mean, the public hearing's still open.
Yeah, public hearing.
Yeah. Come on.
Yes. My name is Kathy Nelson. I want to address the road. Nate said that the road has always been so that not but one car could pass, and that's true. But if he gets this zoning and he has that business back there, I was told that an emergency vehicle has to be able to pass an ambulance. So it'll have to be 2 lanes back there if he gets the zoning that he wants. So that means he would have to expand the road to a 2-lane. How are you gonna expand the road to a 2-lane?
That's not true.
That's not true?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's what I was told. And so it can just stay 1 lane.
Stay 1 lane.
So, in other words, when an ambulance comes through there, they've got to back up for the fire truck.
No, I mean, if you have an emergency on scene, those vehicles come in and stage one behind the other.
Okay.
It's done all the time.
Yeah, that's one of our main concerns is the road, because, I mean, there is no way to expand it to a 2-lane. That's one of the biggest things there. So he would have to, somebody's got to give him land in order to get it expanded. I would have to give him some, so would Mr. Smith, and also the other gentleman, Paul Summers. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, expansion of the road is not required for 2 lanes worth of emergency vehicles. That's not a requirement.
When you closed on the road, Mr. Everett, there should have been, yes, please come on up. There should have been something in your deed that says how your access, is it a right of way or ingress, whatever it is, it should be in the deed.
Yes, sir. Everything's
Have you
listed
presented
in
that
several deeds.
to Mr. Farrell?
Every bit of it is from one end of, where the right-of-way or easement meets 695 all the way to the end of my property. We've accessed all those deeds and it's all written right there. Nothing we brought up, it's just been there for years. So any information that you would, be wanting to see about it it's been right there in the courthouse the whole time.
Okay. That's what I thought. Thank you.
I'd like to address just a couple items that, number one, there's a lot of speculation. And in the defense of the adjacent property owners, I would like to say that because the county doesn't offer a specific seafood zoning ordinance, it does create a problem, especially to the untrained ear. When they jump out there and throw out the M1 industrial thing, it kind of creates the Chicken Little effect. I mean, the fish house is coming, the fish house is coming. This got blown way out of proportion. I'm simply trying to do what I've been doing for 4 years now across the road. Nothing more, just more elbow room, as you can see in the site plan. So moving forward and in the best interest of the watermen, I would encourage the board or the zoning, whoever, to focus on that and make it a little easier for the working waterfronts to have a place, you know, an easier route to acquire places, so that we don't run into this again. Because as Mr. Nelson said, there have been a lot of working waterfronts that have been sold recently, and the zoning has changed. It went from working waterfront to residential.
I didn't say that. I said that they get sold and revitalized. People bought them, Ronnie South Coast bought one, Green, people are buying them all the time.
I think we'll all have to agree that there's been more commercial property bought and turned into what a lot of people call McMansions in the last 25 years than the other direction. And that's kind of the whole reason that I'm here, is to just see more working waterfront for the county, for this area, for myself. But the boys need a place to unload their catch if they're gonna access the natural resource. And those places are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. If you don't have these places, then there's no way you're gonna access the seafood. I mean, if you just let one company come in and be the only place in the entire county, it's kind of a monopoly, you know, and a lot of times they focus only on one kind of fishery, and we need more than one place to do more than one fishery is what it amounts to. And this just happens to be my agenda at the moment, but the big picture is we need to keep the working waterfronts open. We need to let the commercial fishermen be able to work, and they gotta have a place to land their catch if that's gonna happen. More specifically, some more speculation, you know, people that are talking that don't really have any facts. The amount of water that I'm using, fresh water that is, does not even come close to those numbers that were spoke of earlier. And it's not an actual septic tank that stuff goes into before it goes into the water. So kind of take all that with a grain of salt. You know, if you haven't laid your eyes on the facility that I'm working at now, I encourage you to come look at it so that you know exactly what's going on there. Was trying to write down, you know, as he was talking, what was being said. Obviously, the site plan has been submitted. That's been available online. The oyster ground that surrounds this property was recently sold to me by Lee Robbins. So that's in Stay the Course LLC. VMRC is well aware of our intentions. They've been told everything. They've actually helped us investigate the road situation. We've looked in with the Corps of Engineers as to how that could be worked with if it became an issue, you know. But since then, we've realized that we don't actually need the extra width. But we did realize that there are turnoff places on this road that have always been there. So there are on most of the properties. Mr. Smith's doesn't actually have a place that's gravelled where another vehicle can pull off onto, but I would suggest that be looked into as a possible way to deal with the situation of people getting in his driveway and causing ruts. But there are places, as he mentioned, that we noticed that could be made for that. And as far as emergency vehicles, they could definitely pull over. One of them is on Paul Summers's property, and let a fire truck, ambulance could definitely pull over there and let a fire truck pass with no problem. having this place at the end of the road would almost create a cul-de-sac, which we would be more than glad to let emergency vehicles pull down and turn around, just like any of our seafood trucks would, which I believe would be a benefit to everyone on the road. And again, I want to stress the fact that the M1 industrial zoning was definitely what I was encouraged to go after. And I'm not looking for an unlimited M1 industrial. It's obvious what I struck off. And moving forward, I'd like for the board to consider a seafood zoning.
Duly noted. Yes.
Again, my focus is the volume of traffic. He did strike 19 items off of the list, leaving 13 items. Now, if it were just the fishing business and the capture of the wholesale, that might be one thing. But what he's got on there is boat building and repair, that would be new to the area. Commercial marina, that would be new to the area, although Meredith's is a marina across the way, it didn't accessing this little 8-foot road. Truck terminals, I conjure up images of trucks being parked down there, lots of trucks. Wholesale business storage warehouses, county-sanctioned public facility, and a yacht club. Those are my concerns about the volume of cars, traffic, people going up and down my little 8-foot road. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Those things that we left on there, like the yacht club and stuff like it was not necessarily for a yacht club. It was for the one or two things that went along with that, so that we weren't missing anything. So if there's any kind of changes or whatever, I mean, we're interested. We're okay with looking into it, but that's exactly what I was encouraged to keep, so that I could buy and sell seafood. Those things were going to keep me in the realm of what I needed to do.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
I have to go up there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
People in the computer world can't hear you unless you.
He's giving you an example of what we deal with him all the time. And this is why I came up here. If it was just, he wanted a conditional use like everybody else, he's gonna do what he did over there, hey, no problem. His story always changes. It always changes. It's all one, just do it out. Oh, now he's got a yacht club. Hey, what's over there, this creek, not a creek, it's a cove. Then you got Anti-Poison Creek. He said there's no place for the boats to unload. Hogwash. There's 5 places, seafood places, within 5 miles of where he's doing his business right now. People got plenty of places to tie their boats, sell their seafood. There's another place on Anti-Poison Creek that was offered to him that used to be a fish house up the way on Anti-Poison Creek. He turned that down. What it boils down to is we got a cove there that's already full. A cove. It's not like you got running water rushing back and forth in a river or a creek. You got a cove. You got a point of land that he owns coming in with water on both sides. You got convective tide coming in and spinning around. When it spins around on his property, on one side, you got wetland, a wetland cove, which at low tide is dry mud on both sides of his place. When you get just a tropical depression storm, all of his property is underwater, except for where the house sits now. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for somebody like him, who apparently has a lot of money to put into this project, to not want to do it in another location. Other than just he's got a feud with where he's at. And he just wants to prove to somebody that, hey, man, I'm here, I'm staying here. Because the fact is, as soon as he leaves there where he's at, that's always been a fish house. They're gonna pick that up, it's still gonna be a fish house. And then you're gonna have his fish house and that fish house and the 5 other ones within 5 miles. And you got the one herring house over there, that's an industrial place. That is, I don't know if any of y'all been there, it's huge, but it's sheltered, it's way up on land. It's just not a place for what he wants to do, unless he's just gonna do what I do. He got a license, just like me, to sell, trade, and barter. That's what the commercial fishing license is. You can buy a buyer's license to buy and sell seafood as well. I can do it. He could do the same thing. I don't understand this big plan, but now that I've looked at it, I'm starting to understand it. So basically what you got is a cove that's already full of business, and it cannot stand what he's trying to do. The road can't stand it, the cove can't stand it. And that's why I'm assuming people like you here are to protect that place and the people around it. So I hope that he can come to some kind of an agreement to do what everybody else is doing and just get along, because there's no way that the cove is gonna handle this. And then later down the line, what's everybody gonna say? Oh, man, when the water's all, everything's polluted around there and everything's industrialized, like the herring house, I mean, it's gonna be too late then. Now is the time to do something if anything's gonna be done, and have him bend a little bit, you know, and just kind of do what everybody else is doing. Get along, do what everybody's doing. It's just the cove cannot handle what he's trying to do. That's all I need to say. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Hang on. Let me see. Glenn, do we have anybody online?
This is a lot of speculation. We've done our best to put everything we can on paper, twice. And last time we had somebody come in online, it was an adjacent property. Somebody lived on the creek, or in Harper's Cove, and they approached me and told me that, you know, the original thing they had heard through the grapevines was definitely speculation, and they apologized for what they said against my plan, because when they found out exactly and saw the drawings, they had nothing to do with what they had been told by other property owners. That's probably why you don't hear the Kellys chiming in this week. As for the other seafood buying places on that creek, yes, this is an industrial creek, and it is one of the only ones after you leave Reedville until you get into Middlesex County. I'm not gonna step out and say exactly how many wholesale crab buyers there are in Lancaster County, but I know it's not very many at all. I'm pretty sure I can count them on one hand, if it even takes that. A lot of those people are getting up in age, and I don't see a lot of people coming in to fill their shoes. Those other fish houses that are on that creek, like I said earlier, they're specifically targeting or focusing on 1 or 2 fisheries. The one reason that I've made it as far as I have over the last 4 years is because I was doing something that the rest of them weren't really doing. I don't really do much with oysters currently. I'm not ruling it out. I did just purchase the oyster shore surrounding the property, but that's not what I focused on. The herring house is kind of a private, has been kind of a private thing. They don't buy and sell as much. They catch what they catch and they sell it. They don't really buy crabs from other crabbers and then wholesale it. So they're kind of just doing their own thing there. And they focus on bait and it's a great thing. We do business all the time. One hand kind of washes the other there. My crabbers get their bait from the Herring House or from Pride of Virginia. And Pride of Virginia focuses on menhaden. They got the big fish boat. That is actually a good example of the zoning problem. I mean, not that it's a problem, it's obviously serving its purpose, but the place is zone R1 still on the map, and it is not up on a hill, and it is not way off the water. In fact, it's built over the water. And if you were to cut down just a couple more trees, you would be able to see this place that I'm talking about at Pride of Virginia from the Nelson's front porch. And you can see it in the wintertime when the foliage is gone. So adding this facility that I'm talking about is really no different at all than what's going on. And as far as the creek is concerned, the more traffic that comes and goes in Harper's Cove is gonna keep the water depth there. And if you'll notice in my executive bulletin thing that I presented, the living shoreline to protect that finger that sticks out at the mouth of Harper's Cove is actually what keeps the natural depth in that cove. Because if once that's gone, then the erosion it'll slowly fill in the whole way across. If you will, just take a look at that. If you have any concerns, you'll see what the plan of action in the future was for that.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Glenn, do we have anybody online? Anyone else like to add anything before I close the public hearings portion? Okay. That said, the public hearing portion of this meeting is concluded. What do you guys think?
If I could.
Yes, sir, Mr. Swanson.
I was in favor of it the first time, and I'm gonna say I'm still in favor. But it sounds like to me that the M1 is what's blowing everybody's mind here and upsetting everybody. It also sounded like, if I heard Mr. Gill right, and Mr. Everett right, that Mr. Everett was with the county, spoke with the county, and it was decided that this was the best way to go. And he crossed off the things that didn't apply to him and used the things that he's got on here because can't say that the county told him to, but the county suggested is the way I took it from what I've heard. So, and it all seems like it does match up with what he's trying, what little I know of what he does right now. The other thing I wanted to say is the chapter 7 that we're supposed to start on and look at. If you go to page 717 through 719, it says rural character and maritime heritage. Goal, preserve Lancaster's County rural character and maritime heritage. Preserve and promote the maritime heritage, the watermen who continue it, and our waterfront recreational and service industries.
Yeah, it's got, we were talking about, it kind of just dovetails right into what we're doing.
I think so. As soon as I saw it, read it today, I said, but, I mean, that's just my, like I said, I'm in favor of it.
Why don't we have a waterfront zone ordinance?
Well, that's a good question. Our ordinance,
I mean, even Mr. Everett was in favor.
yeah, our ordinance is very favorable to working waterfronts. It actually allows working waterfronts to continue on sites that have historical use of a working waterfront beyond the 2-year grandfather period that most localities have. Most localities say if a use is discontinued for 2 years, you lose that right to continue that use. Our ordinance doesn't have that 2-year prohibition on it. If a working waterfront site is there and it's been more than 2 years, then a working waterfront has existed on it, a new owner, current owner, whoever, can go in and reestablish that working waterfront.
Alacala Seafood.
So, our ordinance is very friendly to working waterfronts. I think, from what I'm hearing, I think the big issue is the word industrial zoning. In the absence of a working waterfront zoning district, this was the closest fit, according to prior staff, that aligned with what Mr. Everett was doing, which they interpreted as being a little bit more than the basic seafood processing that would be allowed in R1 with a special exception. So I would like to add, too, that the proffer statement that has been presented, there's been some comments about that and how many uses remain. I can say that Mr. Everett can modify that right up to the time the Board of Supervisors has their public hearing, if he chooses to do so.
So this is his only route to do what he wants to do?
Right now.
Based on what we've got on the books?
Right now, yes.
What do you think?
Oh. I am in favor. He seems to want to, going by what y'all suggest, what they suggested, and, you know, so.
So same from in May. Tom, what are your thoughts?
I don't have any issues with it. It does make sense that it would be nice to have an ordinance for a working waterfront ordinance. I mean, we have one, we just put together one for a solar facility. Seems like we could put one together for a working waterfront that's not industrial.
What does the board think about that?
Well, it will be, you know, it's nice, but it's not gonna help this situation.
No,
You know,
it's just in the
you're gonna have to
future.
you're gonna have to deal with this. We can talk about, you know, creating an ordinance, you know, next month or whatever it is, but, you know, that takes time.
Right.
That takes time, so, you're gonna have to deal with this particular application tonight.
No problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. It's understandable, but it is what it is. I mean, he has struck a majority of the uses out, so. With that said, we'll make a recommendation, Tom.
I'd make a motion that we recommend favorable consideration to the Board of Supervisors, this zoning request from Stay the Course LLC as presented.
We've got a recommendation a favorable recommendation on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yeah.
No, I'm not opposed.
Okay. Thank everyone for their input. Thank you all. And Steve, you hit it right on the money. I mean, it's, how ironic is it, Chapter 7 talks about the working waterfront, preserving the working waterfront for future generations. I mean, it just couldn't come at a better time. But, Mr. Farrell, you want to bring us up to speed on our next agenda item, please?
All right, Mr. Chairman. The next agenda item is going to be, I was assuming maybe just a discussion, introduction of Chapter 7 review. This will be the first one that I'm a part of, so bear with me, I'll do my best. I didn't know if you actually wanted to start the review tonight or just introduce it.
If I may, I looked at it, the first thing I'd like to see, you know, for the commission members would be, let's just get it up to date. You know,
Yes, sir.
let's get it up to date, and then we can sort of wrestle. I mean, most of these, I mean, you're talking, there's some references to 2007, a ton of 2012.
2012's in the first
I mean,
sentence.
We're slow moving, but we've done a lot of things since those days as well.
Yeah, and the census data, you know, we should use the latest census data too, when it refers back to.
Census data, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
that's important. But we should also talk about what we've done since that last, as far as water access sites. I mean, you know, so there has been some changes. It was census data, it was building permits, it was, you know, everything that was just to freshen up.
And I think the couple of committees that we have appointed to, you know, for economic development and public access.
It kind of is kind of working right there
Said that
with it.
using citizens committees, you know, that's pointed early here, and we are, you know, we might not have done much as we're supposed to, but we've done a couple things.
But it is a big chapter, and that's kind of what I was thinking, is at least we bring it up to speed, then we can sort of look at it and bring it to discussion possibly as early as the next meeting.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
That's a good idea.
You okay with that, man?
Yes.
Steve, you good with that? You good with that? I mean, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I agree, sir. I started striking through the old dates as well. It's right in the first
Yeah, I
sentence.
figured that'd be the first start. Board's in no rush to get this, are they? Okay,
When it comes from down here, we want it right as much as possible.
amen.
It's all the work done down here.
Amen. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for their input. It did not fall on deaf ears. It, you know, it's good to see a young man with the business going, and I certainly understand your concerns with the industrial zone, so, but, that said, is there anything we should look out for next month?
I mean, there's always a chance of additional applications coming in as far as rezonings. You know, we're not aware of anything right now.
Not right now.
So, I mean,
It was interesting going through this big real estate boom and very few rezoning. I guess because we had so much inventory on the damn market to
yeah,
begin with.
that's very true, yeah. One thing, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to get your feeling on. You know, as I stated when I sent out the email last Friday, the Board of Supervisors has been using this electronic agenda management system since January 2021, and the idea was to migrate all boards and commissions over to that. And so, you know, we've got it on, it's called iCompass, which is kind of like board docs on steroids is the way I describe it. But, you know, and I put this meeting's agenda and all the attachments on there, and we'll continue to do that. It seemed like, though, you all still wanted to have a hard copy. As maybe an alternative to that, the board has laptops, and you see Mr. Lee has his in front of him. We can provide laptops to the planning commission members so that you all can have the same setup, and you could have all of it in front of you on the dais right beside the monitor. Is that something you think the planning commission would like to pursue or not?
Is it a cheaper alternative? I mean, I don't want a damn laptop. I mean, an iPad would be easier. I mean, I can bring mine from home because all you need to do is go to the website and you can load it up.
We can't pull it up here.
No.
Lord, y'all would probably charge me double if I broke my laptop, wouldn't you?
But, you know, it's, I think you would prefer having a laptop, you know, I really would, you know. Paper's nice, but.
No, I'd like to get away from the paper too.
Yeah,
It's nice
this
now
is
that
nice.
that you don't have to, of course,
You don't have-
I love seeing you on Friday. You used to, I miss that, but.
Unless,
it's a lot of-
you know, you say, well, I just don't want another device
Yeah.
to mess with.
When Glenn and I were talking about what device to get, I think we looked at iPads, but the thing was, the screen was so small. You know, and, you know, up here, we wanted something that was about the same size as this monitor.
I got you.
And it seemed like the laptop was the way to go. So, you know, you don't have to make a decision tonight. I mean, some board members bring their laptops with them. I know I got one board member who uses an iPad.
Well, you had said that, you know, I said.
So
at
I can
least-
bring my own laptop.
Absolutely,
I don't want to be lugging something else around.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I can bring my iPad, because I got a whopper of an iPad too, so I don't put my glasses on.
Would, Glenn have to go ahead and load?
No, because
Okay,
they can get it right off the
So your
internet.
personal ones can come in.
Yeah.
I could pull up on this thing right now, but I
You
wouldn't be able
could,
to
yeah.
read it. The damn thing.
Yeah.
So, but that was the whole thing, because, you know, just being able to strike stuff, but you said there's a way we could. put-
There's a note-taking
So that would help, too.
section on that iCompass website that you can make notes as you
And
go
that's
through.
just personal to the user,
Mhm.
correct? I think
Yes,
go up to the-
correct, correct.
Okay. I think it's a great idea.
Glenn,
Anything to
is it-
save the county money, all that paper and ink.
Is it anything that I've missed on that? There is that note-taking function on there. Is there anything else?
I think that's about it. You know, you mentioned the note-taking. You know, iPads are available in, you know, screen sizes up to about 12.9 inches, I think. So they, you know, they have, you know, they make them pretty big.
Yeah.
So,
One thing nice about this too, if you click on the meetings and things, let's say, okay, last month.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit there looking at this month, all you got to go scroll down and click right on it.
Yeah.
and you got last month's minutes, like last month, whatever went on.
You talking about right on the county website?
Yeah, right on,
It is a nice feature.
yeah.
Is that all your baby, Glenn?
Well, I can't speak to the, you know, to the actual iCompass portal. Somebody else designed that, but, we had a lot of input in what it looks like.
And it took us a while to.
You're being very
to learn
humble
how to
over
do
there.
it, so. It took us several months of online meetings to figure out how to make.
The only person I know that saved all this was David Jones. You go in his garage, he's got well, he had.
Really?
Every back.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, well, like I said, if you prefer a hard copy, I'm sure Bill wouldn't mind running down the round to you all before the meeting, but, you know,
Why don't we just
I'd
leave
like
it-
to move all